You received a call from an inmate at the Department of Corrections. This call will be recorded and monitored. If you wish to block any future calls of this nature, dial 7 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call, hang up.
Well, well, as I live and breathe, isn't it nice to hear from Mr. Carl? Oh, I'm doing great. You know, the fight's going on, and here and there we're having a few victories, but it's not very discouraging. And it is very nice to know that we're making some baby steps towards some improvements over there. So it's worth it. It's worth the fight. Learn anything new this past week? Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been looking into the cost per inmate, and it is astronomical. I just can't believe that the state of Washington would be forking out so much money per inmate every year, and then actually they have the nerve to believe that they need to build more prisons. Where do they think all this money is going to come from? And plus, there's so many people that get out and they're just left alone. No resources available to them, nobody out here to help them. And then they wind up committing a crime and going back. And I've seen that happen. And I've seen them sue and win. And so we've got people with this money that's locked up in prison. But even for them, it's tough. And so I kind of think that we should go out and invest in the justice system and the penal system and try to get some positive results. You know, a person who's making minimum wage and struggling to support his family, he's not going to spend in excess of money every day if he can avoid it. He's going to look for cost-saving methods. He's going to look for deals. And he will probably even have to get a second job or another form of income. And hopefully it's not committing crime. But there's so many stories I hear that the people are out struggling, trying to make a living out here, and drugs just calls them in because it's a way for their mind to just run away. Oh yeah, I bet you know a lot of people in there in that situation, and they shouldn't be in prison. They should be under somebody's care. And I know a lot of folks don't like to talk to mental health professionals, but just sitting down, you know, maybe even once a week and just expressing feelings and looking for some solutions, asking questions. And a lot of us out here, when we have loved ones that's in there, that's what we do. We talk to them. And to have a system where we're spending all this money per person every year, and then loved ones have to pay to talk to them, pay to send them a letter, pay to send them an email. The people in there are still affected by inflation, so they're making, like in the state of Washington, $1 an hour. And they still have to pay full price for items they want to buy from the commissary. And the state just continues to pop people in prison and just fork out that money. And I don't know.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
What it will take to convince them that it is far cheaper to have people out working, paying taxes, and supporting their family instead of the state. Because when you look at the residual effects of this, a dad, let's say, who goes to prison and his wife and his daughter is left out here, they could be on welfare, or they could be relying on
you have 30 seconds remaining.
Community services to help them get by, which they wouldn't have or probably didn't before their loved one was locked up. So if they do that for like a year or two, maybe not so bad. But 10, 15 years? Oh boy. Well, okay. Well, thanks for the call. It was really nice hearing from you. And if there's any more issues or anything like that that's going on in there, just let me know. And we'll work the best we can to get them done. You have a lot of support
Thank
out
you for
here.
using Inmate Call. Goodbye.
Hello. Welcome to AQS Inmate Call. And I am your host, Joel Wilborn. And in this episode, I just want to make you aware of the cost of incarceration. Now, hopefully, you'll have a little extra time to be able to go online and look up something so that you'll get an idea of what the cost of incarceration is in your state. A female prison usually costs more per inmate than a male. So if you go online and you'd say the total daily cost of incarceration at your state's women's prison, and usually you can get a pretty quick, accurate result from the internet. It will take you to a site that does statistics, and a lot of the prison sites, like if you went to the women's state prison website, you could get these statistics, and that's a public record, so you have a right to view it. I looked up the Washington Correction Center for Women and found out the average daily cost of one incarcerated individual at the women's prison is about $280 a day. $280 to house a woman in that prison or correctional center. And it doesn't include unforeseen things or extra stuff. If they have a resource and they lose it, then they'll have to get some alternative in there. Or if a service is contracted and the costs go up over the years, it doesn't include anything like that. But looking at it, especially through the years, you'll see that the prices go up. If the gas at the pump goes up, gas at the prisons go up. Eggs go up. Coffee. A pair of pants. Shoes. Things that we are tired of spending high prices on. It affects the prison as well. Even if the individual who is incarcerated is paying for it, it costs a lot. And then there's times that the prison has to pay for things, and they have to supply them with clothing and food and shelter and pay the utilities for it, electric, water, and the staff members. Now, at the Washington Correction Center for Women, we can roughly say it costs about $100,000 a year per inmate. That's a lot of money. And the state of Washington has a lot of billionaires in it, so it has resources available. Unfortunately, the billionaires don't pay a lot of taxes because they have trained professionals that will look for loopholes and discounts and kind of skip on a lot of the taxes so they can keep their money. But the average person, let's say a woman who's a single parent, as a matter of fact, let's say she's a single parent because her husband is locked up. Okay, he's in prison for, let's say, 25 years. And so she's out here trying to support, let's say, 3 kids. And she works at Walmart in the daytime, and at night she works at a bar. She gets tips, which helps her, but of course she has to pay taxes on that. So those taxes go toward paying for her husband's incarceration. If she wants to call them and do a video visit, it costs maybe $5 to do a video visit. They do have free video visits. They give a coupon out in the state of Washington. And so let's say our sample or example here, she gets those free vouchers and she's able to use that. So the video visits don't cost her too much. But she still has to pay for the emails. And if she wants to send some pictures of the kids, she has to pay for that through the U.S. Postal Service. If she lives miles away, like I live about 300 miles away from my fiance who's incarcerated. So it costs me quite a bit to get out there. It could cost on average about $100 to get there and back. That's not an expense of mine right now because I'm not allowed to visit. But hopefully I can overcome these little obstacles and get out there. And so I'll be spending the money to drive out there and to come back. And if I happen to stay, I have to pay the hotel and stuff. Now let's say our sample here, she drives out with the kids and she's just tired and she wants to stay the night. So what is it, $60 for a hotel room? And then if she lives that far away, $100. Maybe she's riding in a van. So it costs maybe just a little over $100 for her. So these are her personal expenses, plus the taxes that the state pays. And then that's not mentioning people who have chronic illnesses. Maybe they have to pay for somebody to go to chemotherapy. Or I know insulin is really expensive. And so somebody who takes insulin or has to see a mental health professional on a regular basis because that's one of the most expensive medical conditions out there. And so these things are added in. But when you watch the news or go through the internet, they're not saying what the cost is. Every once in a while, there's groups that come out because as advocates, we're not alone. So when they do advertise to build a new prison, we'll come out, we'll start talking, and we'll let you know the cost of incarceration. And usually that's when it comes to the news, is when somebody's trying to get a little bit more money. I think American citizens should be more actively involved in the funds. I know when a school is looking to increase the pay of their teachers, they may put on the ballot a levy or something, or maybe increase sales tax or property tax. And the people get a chance to read it through their voting pamphlets that they get, or go to a town hall meeting and talk to the candidates that are advocating for it, or running for some of the education offices. And they can get this information and make a sound judgment. We don't just want to vote for people because they got a great public image, or they're handsome or beautiful, or a likable person. We want to vote for somebody who's going to stand for what we want and believe should happen in government. And so a thing like that, people could say, do I really want to pay more taxes? I mean, it's tough as it is. If they decide yes, and maybe fund the fire department, police department, education, then we're doing what the American system was set up to do. We're making sound judgment, and we're voting on what we want. And when we get it, we're more likely to support it. But what if the Department of Corrections had to go out and say, we need an extra $800 million to house these new inmates? And then the advocacy groups get out and say, no, they need to find other ways to do this. Would you be willing to pay extra taxes, extra property tax, maybe give up road construction or cancel projects for schools to build these prisons, to improve these resources? Hopefully your answer is no. And hopefully you will go to your website. And if you see something, I mean, it's in the state of Washington, $100,000 a year for a woman is astronomical. And you might see $200,000 per female in your state. I know there was a story that came out, and they were talking to the prosecutors and the public defenders. They said the average pay for a public defender was $63,000 a year, and they had, on average, 100 cases to work on. This is like every year. Now, if you, let's say a friend asked you to take him and a group of people to somebody's house, and you said, okay, I've got a car, nothing better to do. So you ride up, pick up your friends, you take them out to this area, and they say, well, you know what, we'll be back in a little bit. Will you wait here? And they go off, and then they all come back, but one person's missing. And then they say, okay, you can take us back home. So you take them back home, and then a week later, you get arrested for murder. And as you find out the details, they took one of the members that you'd picked up out to the woods, made her dig her own grave, killed her, and put her in that hole. And since you were a part of this and can't really say, I didn't know what they were doing, I was just driving, prosecutors usually don't believe that. And you might wind up doing a plea deal. Oh my goodness, I don't want to go to prison for the rest of my life. And I certainly don't want to get the death sentence, so I'm going to plead guilty to this, even though I didn't know anything was going on. Very hard to defend against that. Now, of course, I'm paraphrasing a real life incident that I chronicled on my YouTube channel. That kind of stuff, if it happens to you, you don't want to go to prison for the rest of your life because you don't feel that you're a violent, terrible person. But it has happened, and it could happen again. And here we are, a person who is in prison for decades, paying upwards of $100,000 a year, who actually isn't a violent person, should not be in prison that long, and was probably rehabilitated. Like, let's say you better than anybody. Would it take you 25 years to say, I'm never going to do this again? Or could you do it in a year? Or if you were in home monitoring, could you say, yeah, this was bad? Well, the person that I interviewed that this happened to, he said, I take responsibility because I could have driven away. I could have said no. And your friends. So if you had these friends that are kind of into illegal activity a lot, you might think, no, I'm not going to take you out there unless you give me full detail on what you plan to do. And you know full well that they could be lying about it. But yes, and he was right. The choice is his, even though he didn't know what was going on. I got a person that's probably going to be heading into prison next month, and she was in a very similar situation, that they found her scarf at the crime scene, but she was just sitting in the car, and she didn't partake in the murder directly, but indirectly she was. And I don't really want to fight that law, because we can't say, well, you pulled the trigger, so you're going to prison. You kidnapped the person, so you're not. You hid the body in your basement, so you're not. No, everybody who took part in the crime should be charged with the crime. And if they go to trial and get convicted, they need to accept that. That's all there is to it. And we need to pay the price. So once in a while, we need to take a look at our laws. Take a look at, you can, I know in my local newspaper, I can look through and see court cases that come up, the judge and the name of the person and their person's age, and the crime and what was the sentence. Time served or sentenced to 3 months in juvenile detention, community service, or going to prison. And just think about what we're spending money on. Now, the case with Marianne Atkins, she went to prison when she was 19 years old, got a 19-year sentence. In her story that she told me on YouTube, she was defending herself. She was raped by this guy, and she wanted to go. She wanted to leave. And this guy was into human trafficking. He wanted to keep her. He wanted to put her out there and make money. And she wound up getting in a fight with him, struggling with him, taking his gun and shooting him with his own gun. They convicted her of planning to rob him. So when she was 16 at the time, so she just gets in this car with this person thinking, I'm going to rob this person and I'm going to use his gun and kill him. I can't find the logic in that, but the court system did. And locked her up for 19 years. Talking to her, working with her, I just don't see it. I can imagine her being this teen, but look at her background. They're writing a book about her, and I've got some stories out on her on the internet, and she's got some support that's looking into things too, and there's a good chance she could, hopefully with if all goes well, she could get out and get her life back in order, kind of pick up the best she can, because her hopes and dreams isn't to go out and commit more crimes. It's to just get away from it all and live a normal life, things that we take for granted. When you get up and go to work and you say, oh my goodness, I'm so tired, I don't want to do this. Think about her. And think about the taxes that you're paying to keep her locked up. $100,000 a year. That's probably more than you make. And we're paying we're paying to keep someone locked up. And then there's no guarantee that when the person gets out that they won't go back. Marianne has a lot of support, so I'm sure she'll find a way to avoid committing any crime. She may not even jaywalk or speed when she gets out. But there are people, they get out, there's nothing available to them, no place to go, nobody wants to house them, nobody wants to employ them. They get back into the drugs, they go back to prison. $100,000, they get out for like 6 months, $100,000 again. And it could have been avoided. We could have worked with them. If we're going to be spending all that money, let's at least get a good return out of it. And look at the prisons. They're not adequately equipped. And so you're sending somebody there to sit in a correctional center, and they're not getting the support and the resources and the training and the staff that they need. And a good example, let's say you have a child, and well, not necessarily a child, let's say you have twins, and you want to put the twins in daycare. So you call up a daycare center, and the daycare center says, we have a capacity of 200 children, and we have 199, so we can take in one. But I have twins. Could you take in the twins? We can't, because we can only hold 200, and the twins would put us at 201, and that's beyond our capacity and our available resources. Would you sue the daycare center and make these people take your 2 children in, thus overloading their resources I should hope not. But we've got a justice system that will send people to prison that is not sufficiently staffed, that is overcrowded, that has limited funds, and these prisons, these correctional centers, these jails are forced to take them in. It just doesn't make sense. Well, thanks for tuning in, and hopefully you'll be able to talk to your friends and family. Look for signs of suicide, look for signs of depression, look for signs of crime. Let's try to help people to because we get overwhelmed. Let's try to help them to get through this tough time. And don't smother them, don't invade their privacy. Just kind of be available to talk, and look up the cost of housing an incarcerated person in your state. I would hope that you're not shocked, but there's a good chance you will be. $100,000 a year in the state of Washington. Amazing. Well, go out and have yourself a fantastic day and make amazing memories for tomorrow.